Hello, this is Jock and coach of the San Francisco Cinderace. I'm going to be doing my team builder for my Week 5 match against the Boston Badoofs. Now, if you followed the league, you'll know this was my opponent in the 2 previous seasons' finals. We've had close games every time we've played. So on top of that, already being a big thing about this week, he drafted a Sun team, which is very scary, especially because I don't have any weather on my team to counter it with like a Drizzle user or something like that, or a Sandstream user. I do have things that learn Rain Dance and Sandstorm and those sort of things, but I kind of decided that even though I was thinking about picking up Pelipper this week and a couple other things, like I decided I kind of wanted to challenge myself and see if I can figure out a way to do this without using counter weather, and it's going to make it a lot harder. And I don't think it's going to be too likely that we win, but let me get into a couple of the matchups to kind of illustrate why I think that's the case. So right off the bat, you can see I have my Gmax Rillaboom. He has his Gmax Venusaur. I am faster. I can't one-shot it with anything. Rillaboom has a pretty shallow physical move pool, like Max Quake being my best option, and that only does like 30%, I think. Whereas Venusaur is going to have Weather Ball that's going to be doing fire damage when it's not Gmaxed. Probably Sludge Bomb or Sludge Wave when it is Gmaxed as a Max Ooze. So Rillaboom's got his work cut out for him there, on top of Volcarona being very threatening to him as well. And even like the Torkoal, if he brings that, which he's probably going to set up Sun. It is, I should say, it is possible he doesn't bring the Torkoal, but I think that's very unlikely. Unless he's doing like a Trick Room team with like huge power Azumarill, then that's really the only way I don't see him bringing Torkoal. But yeah, all of his fire types are very threatening. The Porygon gets Ice Beam. If he brings the Scyther, that's got flying coverage. So there's a lot of things that give Rillaboom a hard time. But I still need to bring him this week just to try and stall Venusaur as long as I can. Mr. Dracovish. Now, while you would think, oh, he's got a bunch of fire types, he's got a decent matchup, the Sun really hurts Dracovish too, because it's going to be cutting his Vicious Rend damage in half. So while yes, he can still do good this week, it's probably not going to be with Vicious Rend if he is. On top of that, the Azumarill is a pretty good answer because he can come in with Play Rough and threaten me out. The Porygon can take a lot of hits if it doesn't get its Eviolite removed, so all sort of things I'm going to have to play around with Mr. Dracovish. Up next was Skarmory, and like I said, I thought about picking up Pelipper, but decided I want to try and do this without weather. The big thing with Skarmory this week is he's going to be instrumental in stopping the Azumarill from doing what it wants. The Azumarill doesn't have a great way to hit Skarmory. Like, it could go for like knockoff or superpower, that kind of stuff, but its main 2 stabs, Play Rough, Waterfall, and Aqua Jet, aren't going to be doing much of anything to Skarmory, and I can just come in and roost. If I don't get my Rocky Helmet knocked off, then I can keep that around to do a lot of damage on the chip with stuff like Roost. I'm carrying Toxic and Brave Bird, so I can deal with it. It's not a bad switch into stuff like Venusaur, as long as Venusaur doesn't have the Sun Up to use Weather Ball. So it can do a lot this week, but it's going to require like everything this week, very specific and like well thought out switches and usage. Like, I can't be careless if I want to win. Gardevoir. Now Gardevoir has a really cool matchup this week because Venusaur has Chlorophyll. I can speed tie the Venusaur. I'll be able to trace the Chlorophyll when the sun is up, speed tie the Venusaur, and be able to do a lot of damage. Venusaur Psyshock can do half to a Gmax Venusaur, so that's something we're looking into. Because I mean, if you look at the kills, Venusaur is definitely his big sweeper, and it can do that to my team. There's not a lot I have that can power through it. Like, Umbreon might be able to take some hits, Rillaboom can take 2 based on what I've calced, but like, I don't have a great way to get anything in clean against it. So the Gardevoir is going to try and be my answer. It's a chance we get one shot, especially if he already has a Growth or a Max Sludge Bomb off, then we just die if we don't win the speed tie, but outside of the Gmax we can clean it up. We do have Moonblast as well if he brings the Liepard on the off chance, or the Passimian, and I believe we're carrying Psychic. And I'll go over all the sets in general, but I'm just explaining my thinking here. We are carrying Psychic as the other move. Up next is Salazzle, and Salazzle probably has the best matchup out of everybody this week. Salazzle beats just about everything on his team, but that's a problem because I need Salazzle to do a whole lot, and Salazzle's stats don't really lend itself to sticking around the whole game. Salazzle's more of a wall breaker of come in and pick up 1 or 2 kills, so I'm going to have to be choosy about what I need Salazzle to deal with. That yes, it can kill Venusaur, and yes, it can kill Azumarill and Porygon and Bronzong. Like, it can kill all of those. It's going to be very... I'm going to have to be very methodical about what I need it to do. And it's going to be tough to get the maximum value out of it this week, I think. Like, it on paper, Salazzle should just 6-0 his team, but that's not how it's going to work in practice, because there's just so many things he can do. Like, if I wanted to bring a defensive item, let's say I want to bring Air Balloon, right? Because I don't want to get hit by an Earthquake from the Torkoal or an Earth Power from the Venusaur, then the Azumarill can hit me with an Aqua Jet, the Volcarona can hit me with Psychic, the Porygon can hit me with a Psychic, the Bronzong can hit me with a Psychic, so there's just a lot of stuff. That's not even going into, like, rock coverage on Passimian. Like, pretty much everything has some way to deal with it, and that's the trouble, is that if I'm not picking up a bunch of, like, weakened stuff with one-shots, then Salazzle's going to go down after, like I said, 1, maybe 2 kills, and that's going to be a big deal. If Salazzle gets a bunch of kills this week, that's the way I see myself winning, but it's going to have to be, like I said, very well thought out on my end during the battle on how I use it. And then finally we have the Umbreon. Umbreon as a special wall. The trouble with it is Volcarona still beats it, and that's probably his best special attacker. Bug Buzz is going to do a lot, and it's a pretty free Quiver Dance setup, so that's something we're going to have to play around. Unfortunately, Umbreon doesn't get anything that really scares Volcarona, so it's just a matchup I have to try and avoid, which is not a great way to do things. My C tiers do have arguments to bringing them, but I haven't decided on them at this point. I should say I do have a little more time before the battle starts, so I'm probably, well, I shouldn't say I have a little more time. I've got a break between when I need to do things here, so I'm recording this way earlier. It's going to be tonight. I'm going to be thinking about it during the day and deciding if I want to switch anything up. But my C tiers, Boltund would be a pretty good Azumarill answer, and it could do okay into stuff like Passimian Liepard if I thought he was bringing those, but I'm not too sure, so I'm going to probably leave him on the bench. Malamar looks pretty solid in that he can beat just about everything that's not Volcarona, but again, it's a pretty safe switch for Volcarona, who comes in and Bug Buzzes or Quiver Dances or something like that. Mudsdale's not bad. Mudsdale can threaten a lot of stuff on his team and get rocks up, which would be very nice. It's a pretty good Torkoal answer because Torkoal can't do too much to it, but it still gets beat by Azumarill, Venusaur, Volcarona, so... Like, the trouble with his team is that, like, in Draft League, you generally want to spread out your types, right? You want to make sure you don't have any glaring weaknesses, and while he does have, like, glaring weaknesses, like, a lot of his team is weak to fire, or a lot of his team is weak to, like, ground, that sort of stuff. The fact that he's doubled up on so many offenses makes it tough on you as well, that, oh, if I have... like I said, a Salazzle is weak to ground type, then he's got like 4 things that know ground moves. If my Skarmory is weak to fire, he's got like 4 or 5 things that learn fire moves. So that's the trouble with it. It's kind of a double-edged sword that if he goes up against something that can sweep him, that can be the case, but he can also sweep fairly easily. And finally was Orbeetle. I did debate on Orbeetle for Sticky Webs. It would really kind of choke up the Volcarona and Venusaur's plans. But on the off chance he's going to run Trick Room, I didn't think it was a great idea, and Orbeetle didn't have too much else going for it otherwise. So, currently going just with my top 6. So, let's get into the actual team here. Up first we have Rillaboom, bringing max HP, max attack with Assault Vest. I thought about bringing max speed, but I only outspeed the Venusaur in non-sun environments, and I don't think it wants to fight me there usually. So, we're going with Assault Vest. This should let me take a couple hits, plus combined with Gmax Ground, that's going to be boosting my special defense. I should be able to live the majority of his Gmax, assuming he doesn't get a growth off. If he gets a growth off, that's a different story, but yeah. If he gets a growth, then we've probably lost anyways, and there's nothing that Rillaboom could do about it to begin with. But we're running Grassy Glide, High Horsepower, Knockoff, Drain Punch. Grassy Glide just for priority. He can bring Sap Sipper Azumarill if he wants to. I don't think it's a great idea because my Gmax move still goes through it, and then you miss out on kind of the threat of Azumarill, who might already struggle with the sun being up, because his water moves would be doing half, so I think Huge Power is kind of mandatory. But, like I said, it is a chance he brings it. Sap Sipper, I should say. High Horsepower, it's there to hit the Torkoal on the switch if I think that's coming in. It's pretty good against the Volcarona, although I will say Grassy Glide does almost half to the Volcarona, even though it's pretty resisted. Knockoff is mainly there for Porygon, if he brings in the Porygon on the switch, and then Drain Punch as well. Drain Punch hits the Porygon, but also as an option for G-Maxing. Well, if I want to boost up my attack, like if I somehow get Venusaur out of the way and I think Rillaboom can win me the game, getting an attack boost off would be pretty nice. So that's the idea there. But yeah, Rillaboom, taking this, I debated on Acrobatics instead of the Drain Punch for a speed boost and something to hit Venusaur, but High Horsepower does pretty much the same thing, especially because I'm carrying an item, so no Acrobatics there. But yeah, that's the quick run through of that. We're trying a weird Dracovish. I didn't want to go Choice Band this week because there's a lot of stuff that can shut him down, and I don't want to be locked into Fish's Rend if the sun goes up, like mid, I don't know, mid-bout with Dracovish out there. I don't want to be locked. I want to be flexible, so we're running Mystic Water. And then the set is pretty strange. Fish's Rend, Psychic Fang, Substitute Earthquake. We're not running Iron Head, contrary to what you might think. It's not actually super effective on the Azumarill. And he doesn't get any poison coverage, so we're just going to be Fish's Rending or Earthquaking it. Other things don't want to take a Fish's Rend. The Psychic Fangs is going to hit the Venusaur. If I can predict a switch or live through somehow on a move, it's going to do a lot, and in the off chance he brings screens, it's a nice thing to have. And then Substitute is there, so like, let's say I come in on the Volcarona, and he hasn't got a Quiver Dance off, then he probably doesn't want to stay in against me. That's a pretty good substitute opportunity. If I get a substitute off, Dracovish can actually be helpful this week, because I felt Choice Banded into like Fish's Rend or Choice Banded into like Outrage wouldn't be great this week. That's why we're going with Mystic Water on top of it. So that is the team this week. I did actually debate on Water Absorb, but Dracovish practically does nothing without Strong Jaw in the sun, so that's why we're sticking with Strong Jaw. We got Skarmory up next. We're back to the pretty standard set with Rocky Helmet Sturdy, Roost Toxic, Brave Bridge, Stealth Rock, Max Defense. So there is an interesting thing that, yeah, I might end up switching here, that if I put a little bit of attack investment into Skarmory, I think it's like 20 points, then there is a chance to one-shot the Volcarona if it's not defensive Volcarona, which is actually like the second most common Volcarona set, surprisingly. So it all depends on what I think he'll bring, but it is something I'm considering, because Skarmory is a pretty good setup target for Volcarona, especially if he's not carrying Brave Bird. Like a Whirlwind Stealth Rock set is pretty safe for a Volcarona to come in on, so it's something I'm considering is the attack Brave Bird, just to see if I can trap him, but I don't think it'll work that way, and I'd like to keep the defense EVs to wall the Azumarill a little better, but it's something I'm considering. We're carrying Toxic because there's a good chance the Porygon is going to be one of his answers. He might think I'm running, what's it called, Body Press, so it might not be one of his answers, but if it is, I want to be able to Toxic the Porygon. We're running Roost just for the recovery, and then we're running Stealth Rock because of his double fire types. Everything else isn't that weak to it, but like on these two, only one of them can have heavy duty boots, and neither of them want to be taking rocks more than once. So that's the idea there. They do help with a few other KOs, getting a little bit of chip damage, that sort of stuff, but those are the big two that it's sort of like, okay, one of them can't carry boots, and you're going to get chunked by rocks, so that's the idea if I can get them up, but that's going to be the big thing. I might have to be Brave Birding more often than I like, just to cover switches and things like that, so we'll see. Then we have the Gardevoir. Now, Gardevoir is running Choice Specs. I'll explain this quickly. So Gardevoir and Salazzle are running Choice Specs, Choice Scarf. These are practically interchangeable, and I'm likely to end up switching them before the battle, so that might be different when we get in there, but the idea with this Gardevoir is Trace the Chlorophyll, Speed Tie, because I doubt he goes Modest. The recommended Venusaur set is Modest, so it's possible, but I think he's going to recognize that the Chlorophyll Chase will come through, and he's going to be putting Timid as the nature, so we should Speed Tie. I have a chance to die. I want to say it's like a 20% chance to die to a Sludge Bomb, but that's unboosted. If he has any boost, we're in trouble, and we need to win that Speed Tie. So that is half the reason I want to put Scarf, but the argument for Specs is that you do more damage, and something like Rillaboom can come in and clean it up if you can get it in. So the Psyshock is there just for the Venusaur. Moonblast is there for a couple things, and then Psychic is there for a couple things as well. Trick is another Porygon answer, or if I think Azumarill's coming in, it's a good answer to trick the choice specs on the Azumarill. So that's the Gardevoir set. Like I said, might be Choice Scarf when the battle comes around, but we'll see. Currently, we are running Choice Scarf Salazzle with Corrosion. Even though we are Choice Scarf, we're still running Toxic because Toxic hits literally everything on his team. Toxicking the Venusaur would be a big deal. Toxicking the Bronzong would be a big deal. So yeah, Toxic that can't miss and is going to poison something is too good to pass up, even though I'm Choice Scarfed. And then we're running Fire Blast for just about everything. The only thing we really want to Sludge Wave is the Azumarill. Everything else is going to be getting Fire Blasted, especially because it's likely the sun will be up. The Fire Blast is going to be doing a ton of damage, and I'm just going to have to hope I don't miss, because I do need the damage from Fire Blast to pick up a couple of the KOs. If I switch to specs, I might go Flamethrower, but with Scarf, Fire Blast is practically mandatory. And then Knockoff is a good move, just like, oh, I think he's going to switch in the Porygon to take this move. I'm going to knock off and see if I can get rid of its Eviolite, that sort of thing. Or knock off like the Volcarona's Boots if that's coming in for whatever reason. So that's the idea with the Salazzle set. We're running Timid. If it's Choice Specs, we're going to be running Modest, but Choice Scarf Timid Salazzle outspeeds Chlorophyll Venusaur in the sun. It outspeeds Modest Venusaur if the Salazzle is Modest with Choice Scarf, but it doesn't outspeed Timid, and like I said, I'm thinking he's likely to go Timid because he wants to speed tie the Gardevoir. Finally, we have Umbreon with leftovers. We're running Moonlight. Let me pull that up. Moonlight is weird, and I do want to double check this. Yeah, Moonlight varies with the weather. Let's look it up on Cerebi. They're more likely to tell you exactly which weathers do what. Yeah, so base weather is 50% healing from Moonlight, which is equivalent to Wish. Sunny Day, if I use Moonlight while Sunny Day is active, I get 60% of my health. And Rain Dance, Hail, or Sandstorm, it does less. So Sunny Day actually is going to let me heal for 2/3 of my health with the Moonlight up. The only problem is it has 8 PP, so we're going to have to be careful that we don't run out, but it's going to be healing us for a lot more than a Wish could. So I've debated on throwing Wish on there just to help keep, like, substitute Dracovish a little healthy, but I think Moonlight's the better play. And then we're carrying Toxic, Foul Play, Heal Bell. Toxic is big this week. I need to run it on just about everything that I can to try and hit the Porygon or anything else. If I can Toxic that Volcarona, if I can Toxic that Azumarill, that's a win. So finally we're running Heal Bell. There's a couple things he gets that can learn, like Will-O-Wisp. I know P2 gets Thunder Wave. Bronzong probably gets Thunder Wave if I had to guess. And then he's got Toxic on a lot of stuff. Gourgeist gets Will-O-Wisp if he brings that. Liepard, I should have said this when I was talking about the team earlier, but if he drops any of his top 6 for something, I feel like it's going to be the Liepard that's coming. And it's going to be to do all sorts of Thunder Wave shenanigans, try and paralyze the Salazzle and get other stuff like that off, maybe some Confuse Rays or something, but I think it's likely, so I am running Heal Bell. Also because P2 usually carries Toxic, and I don't want to be Toxic while he is Toxic is the idea. He does have... It's not going to show me here. He does have ways to clear it. Or no, he doesn't. I guess Venusaur doesn't get Aromatherapy. I thought it did. I was going to say he could be running Aromatherapy Venusaur, but doesn't look like that's the case. But yeah, this is the Umbreon set. Unfortunately, it's a pretty bad week for Umbreon. It can't do much with a Foul Play. It can't do much with a Dark Pulse. It doesn't do all that much with a Shadow Ball or anything it usually gets. So, I mean, I could run Hyper Voice if I really want to, but I still think Foul Play is my best bet. It still hits Azumarill for like 20 or 30%, so that's the big reason to run it. And if the Passimian or the Scyther is there, then it's useful, but like I said, I'm just expecting top 6, maybe Liepard. That's what we're looking at right now, at least. But yeah, that is the team. Like I said, the idea with going with no weather, I don't know if it's the right call. I probably should have picked up Pelipper for this week, just because it would have made Dracovish a lot scarier, and it would have combated his own weather, but we're not going through with it. Like I said, unless I play this absolutely perfectly, I see this being a pretty big blowout in his favor. Probably 3 or 4-0 in all likelihood. Like, if he gets a Quiver Dance or a Growth Off with either one of his 2 big sweepers, it's pretty much over. So I just have to try and avoid that and pick up as many KOs as I can as the game plan right now. It is possible that I win, but I'm either going to need to get some real luck or make some big reads on what I think he's doing in order to win. So if there was ever a week to wish me luck, it's going to be this one. Thank you for watching.